Welcome back to MedTech Insights. Today I'm joined by CEO of Boston Microfabrication, John Kawola. First of all, John, can you talk about which areas of MedTech are seeing the highest rate of adoption of BMF's technology?
Yeah, so BMF is an additive manufacturing 3D printing technology company. There's lots of different 3D printing technologies these days here in 2026, but we focus on what I'll call very high precision. In some cases, it's described as micro. So these tend to be either small parts or components that require just a high level of tolerance. And when I say high level tolerance, I'm talking about sort of tens of microns, so pretty tight. And we're seeing adoption across a pretty wide range of applications in medical technology, and a lot of it is driven by the desire to get smaller. So this is true not just in our business for medical technology, it's also true for electronics, it's true for sensors and optics and industrial applications. But in MedTech, especially for anything having to do with surgeries, anything having to do with drug delivery, sensors, the smaller the tool or the implant or the device or the sensor, it's generally just much less invasive to the patient. I'll share a quick story, and this is not micro, but I actually have 2 hip replacements. And one was done a few years ago, and one was done about a year ago. And just the procedure, even over the course of a couple of years, has gotten easier, and my incision is much smaller the second time around. So, and my recovery was faster. So I think that's really the driver behind a lot of these things. And so when we get back to BMF, it's for applications where they want really small things. And so that tends to be for surgeries associated with the eye, the ear, neuro applications, and it could either be a device or the tool that delivers the device.
Mm-hmm. And my next question, you've sort of touched on it a bit there, but medical devices are becoming more smaller and more customized for the specific needs of the patient. And talk a bit more about how does micro 3D printing play a role?
Yeah, so a very large majority of our customers use our technology for development. So they're doing engineering, development, and one of the sort of truths about miniaturization and manufacturing is as things get smaller, they just get harder to make using conventional methods, using molding, machining, stamping, other techniques. And so the way our customers in medical device are using our technology is one for development. So they're doing engineering, development, prototypes. And in many cases, they're not just making one prototype. They might be making hundreds and hundreds because they're doing trials and testing. And then in some cases, they are using our technology for the actual manufacturing. And when parts are used for prototyping or short-run testing, they need to be, from a geometry point of view, they need to be exactly what the end part is intended. And hopefully from a materials point of view, they're close. And you can, in the testing program, you can achieve what you want to achieve to determine, how robust and good your design is. Once you get into real end-use parts, the material that's being used has to be good enough, right? So it has to be strong enough, it has to be biocompatible in almost all applications associated with medical technology. And so beyond prototyping and engineering, then is another level of customers who take our technology and then do deploy it for end-use manufacturing. They tend to be applications that are what I'll call disposable. So the device is being used for 15 minutes, hopefully, or less, and then it's disposed of. So the material requirements are actually not that high. They need to be strong enough to do what you need to be doing. They need to be biocompatible, but they don't need to be tested to last for 10 years because they're only being used for 15 minutes. And so covers a very large number of applications in medical technology, and that's where we're seeing it most deployed.
For myself, one of the most interesting areas of additive is the material science. Some incredible developments with like ceramic 3D printing and bone compatible materials. In micro AM, how important is that material science in unlocking new applications for the technology?
Yeah, it's extremely important. I mean, it's if the material is not functional, then it can't really be used in real end applications as the final part. So we do the families of materials that we do on our platform. We don't do metal, but we do polymers. And again, with our polymers, we endeavor to mimic as best as possible other, I'll call it medical grade polymers that are typically molded. And then we also do ceramic. So, and in most cases, this is alumina. And what's nice about ceramic is it is end-use material. So once the part is printed and then it's post-processed and sintered to get a solid, fully dense ceramic part, that is a functional part and has been tested and qualified to be used in a number of applications.
In 2025, BMF was issued a patent for the dual resolution microarch D1025 3D printer. How does this printer in particular benefit MedTech companies?
Yeah, so historically we've offered different machines based on different level of resolution. So we sell a 10 micron machine, a 25 micron machine, and a 2 micron machine. So these are all different levels of resolution. And when I'm using those numbers, what those numbers mean is that's the optical resolution, which actually means the size of the pixel. So if you can imagine a projector projecting, when we say 10 micron, that's the actual size of the pixel. And that then translates to being able to maintain tolerances in the sort of tens of microns. It also translates to feature size. And so when we talk about feature size, I often describe it as what's the smallest hole that you could actually make. And so with a 10 micron machine, typically the math is about 5-to-1. So if you have a 10 micron machine, it means you can make a 50 micron hole. The human hair is about 80 microns. So it's smaller than the size of a human hair. That's important because small holes are actually pretty hard to make in conventional like molding or machining. It's expensive, but we can do 50 micron holes. On a 2 micron machine, you can do a 10 micron hole. So really, really small. So back to your initial question, with the dual resolution machine, it serves two features, two purposes. One, the user gets two machines in one. So they can either turn it on to do, so our 1025 that we have on the market now, you can turn it on one day and do 10 micron. The next day you can do 25 micron. You might ask the question, why would you always do 10 micron? Well, when you do it in a lower resolution at 25 micron, it's faster. So you're making a choice about productivity and throughput. So you can do different resolutions depending on what you want to do, but you can also do different resolutions at the same time. So either 10 micron parts over here and 25 micron parts over here, or even more interestingly, in the same part. So and the best example of that is for if you can picture this is work being done with microneedles. So microneedles, there's lots of research being done. We have a number of customers who use our technology for microneedles. And very often for the microneedle itself, you need high resolution. You might need 10 micron resolution. But for the block underneath that's holding the 10 micron needles, you don't need high resolution. And so that's a a good example of a part where you would use that dual mode resolution at the same time. So we're excited. It's been on the market for about a year. We're very happy with how it's being picked up in the market, not only by new customers, but existing customers who already had other platforms, and then they're adding capacity to their laboratory.
In a recent article that you wrote for our website, you spoke about how micro 3D printing is pushing innovation for drug delivery devices. Can you tell us a bit more about how the technology has been used in this area?
Yeah, I mean, I alluded to it here when I'm talking about microneedles. That is sort of the biggest area of research that's happening using our platform. And the idea here is that, if we think about the future and deployment of whether it's regular drugs for health and maintenance, or for vaccinations, or in a crisis situation, the needle in the vial. I think COVID, we all just went through COVID 5 years ago, proved that's actually relatively hard to scale. Now, I think the world did a pretty good job vaccinating a lot of people, but it took just a huge effort to be able to scale that. The idea with microneedles is things over time move to patches. Now, patches are being deployed already. That's not a new concept, but if it can really be expanded to a much wider range of drug delivery devices and drugs, that would be a big deal.
Now, my final question, looking forward to the future, what kinds of medical devices, therapies, or other healthcare applications do you think will become possible because of advances in this area? And how small can you actually go? How can you get smaller? Because I've seen some of the things that BMF creates and you can hardly see them with the human eye. What's the future for this technology?
Yeah. So the future for our technology is we're always working on. I'm not going to say we're necessarily working on getting smaller and smaller. We actually think we're in a pretty good sweet spot. We're sort of in this micro range. There are technologies out there that can do submicron, and those are sort of amazing technologies. But we tend to stay focused in I'll call it the industrial realm, parts that can be deployed and used in a practical way. So the things we work on really are, how do we make our machines faster and more productive? How do we make our machines easier to use so a wider range of customers can use them? And then materials. Because from a geometry point of view, we're pretty happy. I mean, we can maintain great tolerances, really best in class. We can get features that really no other technologies can get. So we don't spend a lot of time getting better there. We spend a lot of time thinking about expanding the world of users who could use our technology. And then also, as I said, the materials portion is important. The more material options that are out there, the more uses that can be sort of released. So and what has helped over the years is we develop some of our own materials, but there's also a whole world of materials developers out there that are developing materials that are used on photopolymer-based 3D printing platforms. If they work on other DLP 3D printers, they will probably work on our machine with some tweaking. And so I think the whole market, customers, and some of the technology providers like us have really benefited from the fact there's a whole bunch of people working on biocompatible materials, ceramic materials, aluminum materials. You get into other areas like electronics, things like flame retardant materials and electrostatic materials. So as that library increases, more applications are enabled.
That's amazing. Thank you very much. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I thanks for the time this morning. As always, we encourage people who may be intrigued or interested or think they have a problem that we can help solve for them. Our website has a bunch of stuff. You can go look at it, and we often find potential new partners or customers can go find things on our website and identify with them and say, oh, that looks like something that I do, and I have a problem. And what we see increasingly from a wide range of our customers across medical devices, but also electronics and everything else, is this whole push that things are getting smaller. And they're being forced to get smaller for really to satisfy design intent. And then you run up against how do you make it? And that becomes more challenging the smaller it gets.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time. And for anyone watching who's interested in BMF, if you're at a trade show where BMF is present, go to the stand and see the things in person, because it's one thing trying to visualize it in your own mind, but actually seeing it in front of you, it's incredible.